Consistency is often misunderstood as something people are simply born with, as if certain individuals emerge into the world equipped with an unshakable inner discipline while others are left to struggle, but the truth is far less glamorous and far more empowering. Consistency is a decision. It is a choice you make repeatedly, sometimes with enthusiasm, sometimes with reluctance, and sometimes with sheer stubbornness when everything in you wants to stop. There's a dangerous myth that consistent people naturally enjoy doing the hard, repetitive work required to grow. In reality, most of them don't. What separates them isn't passion or innate discipline, it's a commitment to act, even when the task feels tedious, uncomfortable, or inconvenient. They understand that waiting to feel motivated is a recipe for stagnation. Every time you choose to show up, you're training your mind to rely on action rather than emotion. This is where consistency truly begins, not in some reservoir of inspiration, but in the quiet, almost invisible moments where you decide that your goals matter more than your mood. Over time, these choices form patterns, and those patterns become habits that shape your identity. When you see someone who appears naturally consistent, what you're actually witnessing is the result of countless moments where they pushed themselves beyond excuses. Their consistency was not gifted to them. It was cultivated through repetition, through struggle, through choosing effort over avoidance again and again. They earned what looks effortless. Choosing consistency also means choosing discomfort. It means acknowledging that growth requires friction and that the path forward will not always feel encouraging. Sometimes the hardest part is simply starting, and yet that moment, where you push through resistance, is precisely where your strength is built. This choice is not dramatic or loud. It doesn't come with fanfare or applause. More often, it plays out in quiet decisions, picking up the project again, practicing the skill again, committing to the routine again. These small choices accumulate, creating momentum that eventually becomes difficult to break. Consistency becomes a declaration that you are not driven solely by what feels good in the moment. It becomes proof that you are willing to honor your long-term vision even when the short-term experience is uncomfortable. And the more often you make that choice, the more natural it becomes to live in alignment with your goals. The most powerful aspect of treating consistency as a choice is that it removes the illusion of limitation. You no longer see discipline as something you lack, you see it as something you can build through action. This mindset shift transforms the way you approach challenges, because you realize your progress depends on your decisions, not your genetics. Every day becomes an opportunity to practice that choice. Some days you will choose well, and other days you won't, but each new moment offers a reset. Consistency is not destroyed by one missed action, it's destroyed by the belief that consistency must be perfect. When you understand that it's a choice, you gain the freedom to choose again and again. Ultimately, recognizing consistency as a choice empowers you to take control of your growth. You no longer wait for ideal conditions or a surge of inspiration. Instead, you build consistency the same way you build anything meaningful, one intentional decision at a time. Greatness rarely emerges from the initial excitement that accompanies a new idea or ambition. The beginning feels electric, full of clarity and possibility, but that spark is just the starting point. What truly defines the outcome is everything that happens after the excitement fades. It's the steady continuation, the willingness to show up again and again, long after the initial enthusiasm has disappeared. Anyone can be inspired at the beginning. The world is filled with people who start books, start routines, start projects, start transformations, and then stop the moment the work becomes dull or difficult. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who don't is found in what happens in the long stretches where nothing feels exciting. This is the hidden space where follow-through becomes the deciding factor. Following through requires a different kind of energy than starting. It demands patience, persistence, and a tolerance for the slow pace at which progress often reveals itself. It's not glamorous to keep practicing when no one is watching. It's not thrilling to keep refining when results seem small or non-existent. But these quiet repetitions lay the foundation for outcomes that appear extraordinary later on. The people we admire for their achievements did not simply rely on initial bursts of passion. They learned to work through boredom, frustration, and self-doubt. They accepted that passion is inconsistent, but commitment can be constant. Their greatness was forged in days when they felt ordinary, in moments when they questioned whether their efforts mattered, and in the countless times they kept going anyway. The follow-through stage is often where most people give up, not because they lack talent, but because they underestimate the amount of persistence required. They believe the journey should always feel meaningful, always feel inspiring, but the truth is, meaning often shows up after the effort, not before. You earn clarity by sticking with the process long enough for understanding to emerge. Every repeated effort is a subtle vote for who you want to become. The more you follow through, the more you reinforce your identity as someone who finishes what they start. Over time, that identity becomes deeply ingrained, and it shapes your actions with increasing strength. What once felt difficult begins to feel normal, even necessary, because you've conditioned yourself to persist. When you embrace the idea that greatness is built in follow-through, you stop chasing constant excitement and start embracing consistency. You recognize that mastery grows in the repetition others avoid. While others look for shortcuts or new beginnings to recapture the initial thrill, you build depth and substance by staying the course. The days that seem repetitive or unremarkable are often the ones that matter most. They may not feel significant, but they stack together, layer by layer, creating a trajectory that eventually becomes undeniable. Greatness doesn't show itself in a single dramatic moment. It accumulates quietly through steady, deliberate effort. Following through also teaches resilience. It trains you to overcome the emotional ebb and flow that would otherwise dictate your actions. You learn that you don't need constant inspiration to stay committed. Instead, you lean on discipline, intention, and the deep understanding that achievement requires endurance as much as desire. In the end, the distinction between starting strong and finishing strong is vast. Starting requires a spark, but following through requires strength. Following through requires character, and it is in that space where many step away and only a few remain, that greatness is patiently built, one consistent action after another. We often underestimate the significance of the days when everything feels heavy, slow, or uninspiring. Yet those days are precisely where the real work of growth is done. When you show up only when it feels convenient, you reinforce the belief that your actions must depend on inspiration. But when you show up on the days that feel uncomfortable, you prove to yourself that you are capable of rising above your own emotions and excuses. There is a unique kind of strength that comes from taking action when your energy is low, when your confidence is shaken, or when your enthusiasm has disappeared. In those moments, your effort is not fueled by excitement, but by commitment, and commitment built in discomfort is far more durable than commitment built on a good mood. It becomes the type of resilience that allows you to keep moving even through the inevitable rough patches of any worthwhile pursuit. Showing up on difficult days forces you to confront your limitations, not as barriers, but as opportunities to strengthen yourself. It challenges you to remain focused even when your mind wants to wander, to remain persistent even when progress feels invisible. That challenge is what gradually expands your capacity. With every small action taken despite resistance, you stretch your threshold for perseverance. This kind of effort also builds confidence in a far deeper way than success ever could. When you prove to yourself that you can keep going under less than ideal conditions, you begin to trust your own ability to endure. You recognize that your progress is not fragile. It does not crumble under discomfort. Instead, it is reinforced by your willingness to push through it. On tough days, your actions become more meaningful because they are not automatic. They are intentional. You are making a conscious decision to show up, knowing full well that the reward may not come instantly. This intentionality adds weight to your actions. It turns each effort into a declaration of your long-term vision, rather than a response to a temporary feeling. These moments also reveal who you truly want to be. When the excitement of starting fades, when the early progress slows, and when the challenges begin to pile up, your character is exposed. Do you step back because the road is no longer easy, or do you lean in because the outcome still matters? The difficult days clarify your priorities more honestly than the enjoyable ones ever could. Over time, repeatedly showing up on challenging days reshapes your relationship with difficulty itself. What once felt like a signal to stop becomes a signal to strengthen. Difficulty becomes familiar. It no longer intimidates you the way it once did. Instead, you recognize it as part of the process, a sign that you are moving towards something meaningful, not away from it. These actions also set you apart from those who rely on mood or motivation alone. Many people quit when things become uncomfortable because they believe discomfort is a sign that they are not suited for the journey. But discomfort is the price of progress, and those who embrace it become the ones who achieve what others only dream about. Not because they never struggled, but because they learn to keep going even while struggling. Showing up when it's hard also teaches you to manage your emotions rather than be controlled by them. You learn that you can feel discouraged and still act, feel tired and still contribute, feel uncertain and still take the next step. This emotional independence gives you a powerful advantage because it allows you to move forward regardless of the mental obstacles that inevitably arise. The true test of commitment is not measured when everything aligns perfectly. It's measured when conditions are inconvenient, when motivation has vanished, and when giving up seems easier than pushing through. And each time you choose to show up anyway, you strengthen not just your progress, but your identity as someone who follows through, someone who persists, someone who honors their goals even in face of adversity. Every small action you take contributes to a larger momentum that often goes unnoticed at first. These small actions might feel insignificant in the moment, but they are quietly shaping your direction, your habits, and your eventual results. Even when progress feels too slow to measure, every repetition is adding another layer to the foundation you are building. This is the power of compounding tiny efforts accumulating over time into something meaningful. Most people underestimate just how influential consistent small steps can be. They expect progress to be immediate or dramatic, and when it isn't, they assume their efforts aren't working. But meaningful growth rarely happens in sudden jumps. It happens in the subtle, steady accumulation of actions that compound day after day without fanfare. These small steps eventually reach a tipping point where the results begin to show all at once, surprising even the person who put in the work. There is a sense of quiet stability in this kind of compounding growth. You don't need to rely on sudden breakthroughs or bursts of inspiration, because you know the daily actions are doing their work beneath the surface. A single action may feel too small to matter, but 1,000 repeated actions create a force that becomes impossible to ignore. What was once a simple routine becomes a powerful engine driving you forward. This compounding effect doesn't just build skill or progress, it shapes identity. Each time you take a small step, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who follows through. Even on days when you feel like you accomplish little, the simple act of showing up strengthens the mental pathways that make future actions easier. Your identity begins to shift from someone who tries to someone who persists. These small, repeated actions also create resilience. When you commit to doing something regularly, regardless of how you feel, you develop the ability to weather fluctuations in motivation or mood. This resilience becomes a quiet confidence that makes you less dependent on external validation or perfect conditions. You come to rely on your own consistency as your primary source of stability. The beauty of compounding lies in its subtlety. You don't need to overhaul your life in dramatic ways to make meaningful progress. You just need to choose one small action and repeat it. Over time, these actions lead to opportunities, insights, and breakthroughs that you could never have predicted from the beginning. The small steps you take create paths you didn't even know were possible. People often abandon their goals because the results don't appear fast enough. They forget that the most transformative progress is invisible for a long time. Like planting a seed, the early growth happens underground, hidden from view. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. With enough time and consistency, what was once hidden becomes visible, and what once felt small becomes powerful. There is also a cumulative emotional impact to these small actions. Each completed step gives you a sense of accomplishment, however slight, and those moments begin to build upon each other. They create a quiet pride, a growing belief that you are capable of finishing what you start. This emotional reinforcement fuels further action, creating a positive loop that strengthens your momentum. Small actions compounded over time can transform your standards. What initially felt challenging eventually becomes normal. Tasks that once required effort become effortless. Your baseline of what you expect from yourself elevates without you even noticing. This shift is one of the greatest gifts consistency offers, not only progress in what you do, but progress in who you become. Compounding teaches you patience. It reminds you that worthwhile growth requires time, commitment, and persistence. It shows you that you don't need to make giant leaps to move forward. You just need to keep showing up in small, meaningful ways. And as each action builds on the last, you begin to see that those seemingly insignificant efforts were never small at all. They were the building blocks of something far greater. Discipline is often misunderstood as a restrictive force, something that limits freedom or removes spontaneity. But in reality, discipline is the structure that allows your potential to take shape. It is the bridge that carries you from where you are now to the version of yourself you hope to become. Without discipline, even the most inspiring goals remain distant ideas, never fully realized. With discipline, those same goals transform into achievable milestones that gradually shift your life's direction. It's easy to feel excited when you imagine who you want to be. The vision is clear, the dream is compelling, and the possibilities feel endless. But the distance between that vision and your current reality isn't crossed through imagination alone. It is crossed through consistent, disciplined action. That bridge doesn't appear by waiting for motivation. It is built through choices made daily, often in moments when no one is watching and when no one else will notice whether you follow through or not. Discipline acts as the steady force that anchors you to your long-term purpose. When your emotions fluctuate, when your motivation dips, and when distractions pull at your attention, discipline keeps you aligned with where you want to go. It gives you a clear path to follow, even when internal storms are trying to pull you off course. Without that internal structure, your goals remain vulnerable to the unpredictability of your feelings. This bridge of discipline is built from simple, repeatable actions. These actions might appear small or even mundane, but each one reinforces your commitment. Each time you honor the routine you set for yourself, you add another plank to the bridge. Over time, what started as a fragile effort becomes a solid foundation you can rely on. You begin to trust yourself, not because you feel motivated, but because you have a history of doing what you said you would do. Discipline also transforms the way you relate to challenges. What once felt like an obstacle now becomes part of the process. You learn to work through frustration, to stay focused when things aren't going smoothly, and to embrace the discomfort that comes with progress. This resilience becomes one of the most powerful tools you possess because it means setbacks can't easily derail you. They may slow you down, but they no longer stop you. As you continue taking disciplined action, your belief in the possibility of change deepens. You begin to realize that transformation isn't an event, it's a progression. It's the daily execution of your values, the repeated demonstration of your priorities. You start to see evidence of growth, not in huge leaps, but in the steady alignment between your intentions and your behavior. That alignment creates momentum, and momentum creates confidence. Discipline also clarifies your identity. Each time you choose to act in service of your future self, you reinforce the message that you are capable of shaping your own path. You no longer feel like your goals are distant or unrealistic. They become tangible because you are actively moving toward them step by step. Discipline becomes a reflection of your character, a quiet but powerful statement of your commitment to yourself. The more you practice discipline, the more naturally it comes. What once felt like a struggle becomes routine. You begin to crave the stability and progress that disciplined action creates. You start to feel out of alignment, not when you are disciplined, but when you stray from the standards you have set. This shift is a sign that the bridge between who you are and who you want to be is becoming stronger. Discipline teaches you that progress isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. You don't need to achieve everything at once. You just need to take action repeatedly, even when the results seem small or invisible. With time, these actions accumulate into the breakthroughs you once thought required dramatic effort. The bridge that discipline builds carries you steadily forward even when progress feels slow. In the end, discipline becomes the quiet force that supports everything you aim to achieve. It removes the gap between intention and action, turning dreams into achievable paths and aspirations into daily commitments. Through discipline, you give yourself the structure to grow, the resilience to continue, and the foundation to become the person you envisioned when you first dared to dream. There is a moment when hesitation becomes the only thing standing between you and the life you want, and that moment is almost always now. Too often, we convince ourselves that the right time will appear somewhere in the future, when circumstances feel easier, when we feel more prepared, or when motivation magically rises again. But waiting for the perfect moment is how ambitions slowly fade into the background. Action, even small action, is what gives your goals a heartbeat and brings them into motion. When you begin now, you interrupt the cycle of delay that keeps so many people stuck. Taking a single step breaks the illusion that action must feel monumental or dramatic. You realize that progress doesn't require grand gestures, it requires willingness. The moment you start, you prove that you are not controlled by fear or doubt. You show yourself that you can move forward without needing certainty or confidence to appear first. There is power in deciding that today is the day, not because everything is ideal, but because you refuse to wait any longer. Action taken in imperfect conditions strengthens your resolve in a way perfect circumstances never could. It teaches you that you can navigate obstacles as they come, that you don't need everything aligned to begin, and that progress is made by doing, not by planning endlessly. Starting now also allows you to take advantage of momentum. Once you take that initial step, the second becomes easier, and the third even more so. Action creates energy, and that energy fuels further action. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable simply because you chose to begin. You shift from the mindset of dreaming to the mindset of doing, and that shift can alter the trajectory of your entire life. Many people underestimate how quickly small, consistent actions can build into something significant. They stand still because they believe the first step won't make a difference. But every major transformation begins with a moment that looked insignificant from the outside. The first workout, the first page written, the first call made, the first attempt, these beginnings are the seeds of every success story. When you start now, you also eliminate regret, the quiet, lingering feeling of knowing you could have done more. Action protects you from that. It ensures that even if the road is difficult, you are at least moving along it. Regret comes from inaction, not effort, and the earlier you start, the more time you give your actions to compound into results that might otherwise have never existed. Beginning now helps you redefine what is possible for you. You start to realize that limitations you once believed were fixed were often just assumptions you never challenged. Taking action forces you to confront these assumptions and see that they don't hold the power you once gave them. Each step forward expands your understanding of what you're capable of achieving. The simple act of starting is also an affirmation of your worthiness. It is a declaration that your goals are not foolish, your dreams are not unrealistic, and your efforts are not wasted. It is a statement that your future matters enough to take action toward it today. You demonstrate to yourself that you believe in your own potential, even if the belief feels small or uncertain at first. Starting now also reshapes the way you view time. Instead of seeing it as something you need more of, you begin to see it as something you create through action. When you stop delaying and start moving, time stretches. You accomplish more than you thought possible because you're no longer waiting, you're initiating, progressing, and evolving. In taking action today, you open the door to opportunities that only reveal themselves once you're in motion. Clarity comes through doing, confidence grows through practice, and direction becomes clearer with every step. The future you want begins the moment you choose to take that first step, not later, not eventually, but now.